8.5 seconds, a baby boomer turns 50 here in the U.S., and they often work full-time, they're still raising a family, and now they have to care for an elderly parent. Clinical psychologist Dr. Christina Zampatella joins us now with tips on how to cope, which is very important. Good morning, doctor, first of all.
Good morning.
Give us a little more information about this so-called dual identity that so many boomers have to face today.
What they're referring to is something called the sandwich generation, and you kind of touched on it when you first opened up there. That is where they're raising their own families, but because people are living longer, they also have to take care of their parents. So they end up being in the middle and having to deal with the roles of both parent and child at the same time.
Is it just too much pressure? Because I think there's about 20 million or so people that fall into this category. Now, that's a lot of Americans.
20 million of the people in the middle.
Yeah, they're stuck in that conflict in the middle.
Well, and there's also 33 million people over the age of 65, so they certainly are stuck in a place where they have to manage both of those roles, as I mentioned before, but they also are feeling a lot more pressure and a lot more stress, and if they're not aware of where the community resources are, they can take on a lot of responsibility when perhaps they could be receiving support.
Talk to me about the toll that this takes on people. I mean, emotionally, it's got to be a really big toll as far as it's kind of a tug of war. You're battling with a couple of different things you have to deal with in your life. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, well, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're pulling together your social support so you're not the only one feeling responsible.
So that's key.
For it.
You can't do it alone. Don't do it alone.
Don't do it alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, make sure you ask for help. Ask your friends. If you don't know where the resources are, reach out to your friends that may know. And make sure that you are trying your best to find some kind of balance between dealing with, raising your own family, but also trying to make sure that your parents are taken care of. And not to forget that your parents aren't going to be completely helpless. That, we want to encourage them to maintain as much independence as possible, because one thing that really takes a toll on those who are in the elderly population is all of the multiple losses they have in their independence.
And how do we deal with the fact that I think a lot of these baby boomers feel this, we talked about this responsibility, and they feel like a lot of them feel like I can do this on my own. I can do it for my mom and my dad, and also deal with my younger family and deal with my parents. How do you convince them that they should get help? Because sometimes they'll feel, I can do this on my own.
Well, I think we have to tune into how they're feeling and make sure that we're empathizing with all the stressors that they're dealing with, and try to ask, in what way can you be, in what way do you need services? In what way could you use the support? We also have to really pay close attention to one's culture. There are certain cultures that have more expectations in regard to taking care of your elderly parents, such as, in the Asian populations, for example.
Yeah, talk to me more about that, because a lot of Hispanic families, a lot of Asian families, it's more common to have the grandparents living in the house. The days of the nuclear family, I think, are long gone, but some people are still doing that. What's the difference, and how does that affect people?
There definitely is more pressure and more societal expectations in the cultures, like the Latino cultures, as you mentioned, Asian cultures, and the African American cultures, as well as Native American. It's the white culture that has more of the disparity between the nuclear family and their parents not living in the home. So I think it's important that we take into consideration these cultural values.
Is there something that could be done, kind of like if folks are watching this right now and saying, hey, that's me. How do I get help, or how do I get people's support to what I'm doing right now?
Well, one thing that's really helpful is if they're starting to notice a cognitive decline with their parents, they can go ahead and reach out to medical services like their primary care physician and see what might be available on that level, because then you start getting in the system and you start being introduced to the options that you have out
because
there.
You don't have to do it alone.
Don't do it alone.
We cannot stress that enough.
No.
Dr. Christina Zampatella, we thank you so much for your insight on this. Integrative Psych Services. The number is 858-268-9800. Give her a call, and also more information, fox5sandiego.com. Doctor, thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it.